This has been a busy place this last week, and there's a couple folks that I wanted to make sure that we say thank you. We kicked off on Saturday the Adopt-A-Plot. Those of you who drove in today saw cleaned up beds and new plants, and it just looked awesome. I looked out at the fence this morning and it's clean. I'm sure our neighbors love all the effort. But I wanted to say thanks to the core team, Arlene, Barbara, Stephanie, Janine, Juliana, Wendy, Candy, Aaron, Jerry, Rich, Jim, Jennifer, and Chris. Let's give them a hand, folks. They did it. I was going to say they did a yeoman's job, but it was mostly yo women that did most of the work. And the other thing, as you know, most of you, that Thursday we had a celebration of life for Mary's beloved Greg. And there was so much work that went in. There was 3 people that really did a lot of work Tuesday, Wednesday to get ready. And I wanted to recognize Arlene. She mulched that entire front by herself on a very hot, humid Tuesday. And Stephanie and Barbara, they made the fellowship hall look like a cafe and cleaned it up, and it just looked awesome on Thursday. So thank you all for all that work. Today, right after our peace circle, we're going to ask you all to come right back to the seats for a very short presentation, and you get to vote. We've got a big project, biggest one since I've been here, and you know, it's between, I don't know, 50 and almost 100. And we're going to look at quickly at the options, and then you're going to decide. One of the things that we on the board heard from you on the surveys is that you want more and more input. And so you're getting the opportunity today to choose. And whatever the choice is and the vote is, then we'll go on from there. So it'll be very quick, right before we go to Fellowship Hall. And for those who, I don't want you to forget this, we actually moved the board meeting a week so that we can participate in the Harmony Walk. I did tell Charles Lee that their concert at Paul Meyer is exactly the same time we're going to be walking with Harrisburg. What I love about this opportunity is we've been talking about being doers of the word, doers of truth, doers of universal love, which is inclusive. And we get a chance to start at the Baptist church and walk to the mosque, and then have a light supper with our sisters and brothers from the Muslim faith. And this is an incredible opportunity. I'm hoping we have quite a few people. Jack and I are looking forward to being part of that, and we're going to walk as a group, whoever shows up here from Unity Harrisburg. We have a lot planned, as you saw, as Jerry shared with you, coming in September, and I'm really excited. One of my favorite times is a kirtan concert. And for those of you who have never participated in the energy of chanting together as a group sacred words from Sanskrit is really what it's all about, and the energy in this room will be phenomenal. And then that Monday night, Susan from the group is going to lead us. We'll start in the fellowship hall, and we're going to end up using our labyrinth as part of the whole process. So it's going to be meditation in motion and working with the change of energy that comes as we move into the fall. So some exciting new things as we learned from our scientists we've studied the last couple of weeks. As we move our thoughts and our consciousness into new things, we build new pathways, and we're looking to do that, so please join us. All right, chapter 2. I made a statement last week that I believe this book will go down as one of the best, if not the best, Unity books ever. And when I had the opportunity to experience what folks were saying, we had one of the biggest classes we've ever had on Tuesday, and the energy that was in there, and what people were saying is happening is that they're connecting with the divine in a whole new way. I knew my statement was going to become true. The fact that this was written 16, 17 years after Eric Butterworth left the planet is now coming here, I believe, at exactly the right time. And I want to share with you why I believe that even deeper than I did last week. But Tuesday night was amazing. I don't even know how many folks were there, but the energy there and the way the folks were opening and sharing how they were feeling the divine in a different way than they've ever experienced before is exactly why I do this, what I do. And it's exactly why we do these kind of studies collectively as a group, but also getting deeper and higher in what we did on Tuesday. It comes from this tape series, what we're studying. Now, and I always want to keep it real. I had to laugh when I saw this because it says Unity Live on the top there, on that little banner. That's a little deceptive because this tape series happened in New York City, in Lincoln Center, in a study that Eric Butterworth did over a period of many Sundays. So I don't know quite how they got that banner in there. When I looked at it, it was like, well, it happened out at Unity Village. No, it didn't. It happened in New York City. But anyway, it's out of that is where this book is being put together. And I was trying to find out when he actually did this because for me it makes a difference where it is in context of his life. But it's very interesting what he's doing in this book, and I want to talk about that this morning so none of us miss it. As you know, this is one of my spiritual mentors, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He's one of my heroes. Anyone who gets kicked out of Harvard Divinity, I'm all about. And when he said this is what started a path for me to become a minister. When he said, when you have broken with the God of tradition and the one of intellect, then you open yourself to the fire of the presence. And that's what we're about. That's what this study is about for these 8 weeks. And this is what it's about Tuesday, is getting connected with this fire, this passion that comes from the divine presence. Anything else is just noise, just words. And we've spent a lot of time in noise and words. Eric Butterworth, near the end of his life, said this about unity. He said, in unity, we do a whole lot of talking and not enough doing. And he's right. And that's why we're focusing on becoming doers of the word in this process, doers of the truth, so that we can see how it begins to integrate when we walk out of here today and for the next 7 days of this week. In my studies in coaching, I did a lot of research and study in NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. What I love about NLP is it uses processes that transform people's lives and transform them quickly. One of the most famous, some of you may or not know, is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins I studied with way back when I was a salesman trying to figure out how to sell. And he kind of became my mentor. I walked on fire in one of his big deals in Washington, D.C., but he taught reframing, and reframing is one of the most powerful processes to transform where you are in your life, to move to something new. What I love about Eric Butterworth, and he doesn't even tell us, is this whole book is about reframing. He's reframing spiritual, religious terms in ways that change how we experience them, and that's what reframing and NLP was all about, or is all about, and that's how he used it in this book. What am I talking about? What is reframing? It's changing our perspective. Boat, land, two different people. Same event, but totally different perspective and what it means. So our perspective, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, is what determines what? Our future, our destiny. If we continue to look at ourselves like some of us were taught in a very fundamental religion early on, is that we were out of the worm, out of the dust. How does that help our self-esteem to move to a place of light and love? It doesn't. So when the reframing of this and moving, because those thoughts, those beliefs, those attitudes, those perspectives are still in our subconscious mind unless we remove them. And they will be there for the rest of our lives. And what I love what Eric has done here is he begins to reframe for us from the very top down. So reframing is taking a word, an attitude, a belief that you have, and reframing it to something that allows you to open up to something new. So here's a word, God. It's just a word. but there's a lot attached to it, is there not? Even if you didn't have a very serious religious upbringing, you got it from collective consciousness around this word. What is the word, G-O-D? It's 3 letters. Well, you can look at it and say, well, it looks to me like it's dog spelled backwards, which it is. But it's nothing more than a word. Words are not spiritual. Words are mental constructs. And we have been given all of this teaching and all of this that we've watched around us from our childhood on. We study, right? What happens in the subconscious happened before we were 7 years old, most of it. And most of our beliefs around God happened before we were 7 years old. And most of us, including myself, were taught the Old Testament God, the God of duality, the God of love, and the God of punishment. And we hold that in our subconscious, and what Eric's saying is, let that word be. Don't even touch it for now. Just let it be what it is. Because we know no matter what culture and religion, there's different names for God, right? It could be Brahman, it could be the Tao, Allah. They're just words. What matters is the experience. Are you connected to your source? Are you connected to that divine energy? And what he did in chapter 1 is he reframed that word to the allness. And what I love about words that mean what they say, allness has a whole lot different meaning than the word God, G-O-D. Allness means allness, all of it. Present every living thing, no matter what it is. We had people working yesterday in all kinds of allness with plants in the dirt, the creepy little worms. The allness. When I hear that, and what it has done for me, and what reframing does for us, if we want, is allow us to drop all the prior teachings we had around that word God. We don't need all that stuff. We can begin to enjoy allness. And we talked last week about putting things to it. In the beginning was allness. I and the allness are one. Be still and know allness. And as you begin to move to those words that are no longer tied to the old stuff, it allows you to begin to experience it in a new way. The power of reframing works at all levels, and it works spiritually. Eric Butterworth's the first person I know that has brought it forth in this book as a way to begin to process it with new words that have new constructs, that have new meanings, which allow us to be open then to a new experience. Allness is omnipresent, present in every cell and every atom in the universe. That is a bigger idea than what I was taught God was. You know, before I was 7, it was a bearded, big old Super Santa in the sky. And if I was a good boy, I got prizes and presents, and if I wasn't, I got black chips on a book. And then something really bad would happen. No, that's not it at all. It's getting in connection with this incredible energy and intelligence, omnipresent, present everywhere. Omnipotence, one power. It's the power. It's life. It's universal love. It's peace beyond any human understanding, and joy and omniscience is one mind, one intelligence, one wisdom. All available to us as we open up to this allness and allow it to flow through us. But it's only potential until we connect, because we have free will choice. Yeah, last week I gave I'm always trying to find something in nature. So instead of looking at ourselves as Niagara Falls, we looked at Lake Erie. Lake Erie being the allness, being the source, being, on Tuesday night I asked everyone when in meditation, I said, are you connecting with source, with the big thing. I call it Lake Erie. We're the Niagara Falls. But are we connecting with what's behind it in the invisible, in the energy that the divine that flows through? We're back to my double think. We need to learn to be able to do this. Because a lot of religious teachings, well, it goes one of two ways. Either they teach the duality that we talked about earlier, the good and the bad, or a lot of the Eastern religions talk about, well, everything you see and touch in the world is an illusion. Well, it didn't work for me. You know, when someone told me so-and-so had cancer, it didn't feel like an illusion to me. So as we begin to understand that we are not either or, right? The doublethink allows us to look at and both. We are in this world. These are Master Teacher Jesus' words. Be in this world, not of it. My kingdom is not of this world. So there's two worlds that you and I live in. And it's very confusing at times unless we begin to be able to say, okay, yes, I hear that, but here's what is true. So we have facts and we have truth. And they're both can be different. And it's okay to allow ourselves, we have the capacity and the ability to hold those two things at the same time in our consciousness. We were taught for a long time that you can only have one thought. That is not true. You can have lots of thoughts. And we can hold these thoughts and say, okay, this is happening, but I know what the truth is here for me. And that's the ability to double think as we begin to look at what's happening in our lives. So here's for an example, and we talked about this on Tuesday night. If you begin to insert the word allness in other scriptures, it begins to take on a whole new meaning. That's what reframing does. So instead of, for with God nothing will be impossible, the reframe here is with allness nothing is impossible. Not future pacing, but now, here and now. With this allness, when I am connected and I can feel it within me, that fire and that passion of presence, there is nothing that's impossible as that flows through me. And there's nothing that's impossible for you if you want to choose that to be true for you. So Eric goes on to say this, we have to learn to know thyself, right? That was over the Delphi temple. Know thyself. But know thyself with doublethink. Know thyself that, look, there's a human piece of me here. I know I exist, right? You all know you exist, right? You all look at me like I have three heads. You can't be here today if you didn't exist. You know you exist, right? That's a knowing. That isn't some abstract mental construct. That's, I exist. I'm here, I think, I feel, I cease, I perceive, I am. And I think it's really important what he's teaching here is that we need to own what is happening here in the physical. We're here in the physical for a reason. We have a purpose to be here, I believe. Some of us has figured it out, some of us still looking. But as we begin to own that, we can begin to double think it and say, okay, this is what's happening, but there is something else that I can do about what's happening in my day-to-day. Eric went on to say this before I give the quote. How many minutes a week, hours a week, do we spend talking and thinking and feeling about our bodies? We've been well trained, haven't we? Yeah. The subliminal persuasion of the marketing of all the ads are so that you spend all your time buying more products to make your body important. Eric says this, you do not live as a body. Your body is not you. You have a body. We have bought into we are a body. We're not. We're eternal, immortal, spiritual beings with a body. We have a body while we're here. I'm not saying the body's not important. We want to keep it up and do preventive maintenance and all that, just like you would a good machine. But I think we have spent way too much time there. And what the master teacher said, give it no thought. Give your body no thought. What you eat, what you drink, what clothes you put on, stop thinking about all that and get yourself centered where it matters. So who is this you that has a body? Who is it? Who is the real you? Please stand up. Are we divine inside? Truly, are we? Are we just another piece of the body in there? That's what chapter 2 is about, is beginning to understand, and you're going to see the reframe here. So we have the allness, which is the allness of the energy and the intelligence flowing through us. So who and what are we in the midst of this? So Jesus was obviously, this is what I call him, a child prodigy. Why do I call him that? Well, he came to a carpenter family that didn't read or write, basically. They talked Aramaic, which is an oral language. But by 12, he was in the synagogue, basically teaching the religious experts in Hebrew out of the Old Testament. Now, how you go from Aramaic and not able to read to, at 12 years old, you can take the rabbis and priests to school on the teachings, you had to come in, the way I figure, must have come in a pretty old soul. But the key here is that Jesus says himself that I was nothing more than a man. Over and over and over again. Who uncovered the divine within me. He said, I myself did nothing. I was just a man who learned this was inside of me. And he was never, ever, ever did he say he was an exception. He said, I am an example. If you follow what I teach you, you too will live in the divine within yourself. That is all he ever taught. And it was so misconstrued in churchianity starting about 350 AD when they decided to make Christianity basically the political and religious structure of the country. But he never taught that. He said, I myself can't do anything. And we're going to talk about what he called all of that. He called the divinity within himself Father. Remember, he was talking to people of Aramaic and Hebrew language who didn't read and didn't write. So he brought words that somehow they would get connected with. But he never said he did it. He never said he was special. He never said he was an exception. He said, what I can do, you can do. Actually, he said, everything I did, you can do and do more. That's what he truly taught. It's not what churchianity has taught, a lot of us. And so why is the reframe here so important? Because we're dragging a bunch of other beliefs with us. That we are not worthy enough or not good enough to be able to do everything that we're being told that we can do. But he taught here the repeatable Father, because he called it Father. Never did you see him call it Christ. Ever. That came 90 years later when Paul wrote and called him Christ and gave Jesus a last name, Jesus Christ. That was 90 years after he died. But Paul, at the same time, began to teach the repeatable Christ. In other words, you and I can experience exactly what the master teacher says we can experience and that he did, and you and I can do everything he did plus. We do not carry that belief with us, most of us. We carry something whole lot less. Do we not? And we're talking about who we are and how worthy we are and who we truly are is what this whole lesson is about. And our understanding of that is what sets our self-worth. Our perspective And out of that perspective of our own self is what brings our future and our destiny. So this word Christ comes from a Greek word Christos. It came hundreds of years before Jesus. It was used many, many times for other great teachers. It's actually translated from a Hebrew word called Messiah. So the Christos was the Greek on top of the Hebrew. And basically what the word means is the enlightened one, the one who woke up, the one who's anointed, the one who woke up to who and what they truly are. And the teaching is that you and I can do exactly the same if we wake up. And one of the ways that I believe we can wake up is by reframing this word, and that's exactly what Butterworth did in chapter 2. The Christ in you and I, the hope of glory, Paul, 90 years later, never said Jesus in you. He said the Christ, it's the principle. It's the divine within you and I is our hope of glory. So here's all the words that, just a few that I came up with. These are all mean exactly the same. Jesus used Father. Paul used the Christ. And in Tao Te Ching, it was the Tao. And Bhagavad Gita is the Atman, or the I Am. These words all mean the very same as the divine within you and me. And can we consciously get there and connect? Because that's what matters. It's not the words. What matters is the experience. We cannot change the cards we're dealt. It's just how we play the hand. I can't change that I was born into Mennonite religion, and I was taught all this fundamental, very damaging things, quite honestly, to my self-esteem. But all I can do is change the hand that I was dealt, and the way I changed the hand is I began to reframe these things that were holding me back. So how do we reframe the word Christ? Butterworth reframes it, eachness. Each of us have allness in us, and that's where he got eachness. But when I begin to use this word, I bring no more baggage from the past. I can breathe into that place and go, okay, the eachness. It's much easier for me to, someone upsets me, for me to say, I can begin to see and feel the eachness within them than it is to say the Christ within them. And so I open you to welcome you to try, like we did Tuesday night, to the allness, reframe the word God, and reframe the Christ within to eachness, because it becomes to me, very much more personal, and I can connect with it, and then all the baggage that I've been carrying around seems to just flow away. And the eachness represents Niagara Falls in the story we used last week. So we want to connect and understand who and what we are in that process, but making sure that we open up to all that is flowing through the eachness of ourselves. And here's my circle. I love the circle because it encompasses all of this, an allness. And if my circle was big enough, I could have 7.4 billion eachnesses in there, and we would have a map, a picture of the planet Earth and everyone who's here. All inclusive. Everyone. No matter how they act, or this is true for them. And it becomes a little bit easier to become more inclusive, and the more inclusive we are is how we connect more and more with the power of the allness. As soon as we go to exclusivity, we're out of the circle. Exclusivity does not exist in the circle. And we take ourselves by free will choice, become exclusive, become judgmental, become condemning and criticizing, and we take ourselves right out of the allness of the divine. As we begin to learn to double think here, our humanness, our ego versus the divinity within us, or our eachness. And this is the pattern that goes on all day long, is it not? I don't know about you, but I can have the most incredible meditation in the morning, get in my car, and the first person that pulls out in front of me, I come sliding way out of divinity and eachness really quickly. But that's okay, because I'm now aware of what's happening. And I'm not unconscious. I'm conscious. I can say, okay, what do I need to do? Well, why don't you start with breathing? That'll help, right? And as I start to breathe, I can come back and I can bring myself back much quicker. But this is the how-to. And what we're talking about, this whole book is, we're done with words that just mean religious things. How do we do this? And that's what I love about how he teaches here. And we're going to finish up with to be able to do this. It's not either or, it's and both. And it's true, and no matter what we do, and as we begin to learn to do that, it keeps us in the allness within the circle, without it going to judgment or guilt or shame or criticism. The master teacher said this, be perfect. You say, really? Perfect? Me? I don't believe he would have given us this teaching if it wasn't possible. But here it helps me a whole lot when I reframe it. Be perfect as the allness is perfect. I don't have to try to be perfect. I just need to connect with the allness, which is perfect. And I can be able to live in that as long as I double think myself back to the allness. And in the eachness within myself allows me to begin to experience that perfection. It's not something I do. It's something I be. And beingness, being, is more important than what we do. We've been taught the opposite here in the United States. As we focus on being and allowing this to flow through us, the rest of it will take care of itself. And it was reminded again in Timothy that it is our job to stay connected, to stay afresh in that fire that's inside of us. We have to make that connection. We have to consciously make the connection. It's simply potential sitting there in the allness until you and I make the connection and have it begin to flow through us. So we're trying this, every chapter through this series is, so how can we be the doer of this? He gives a really, really, really powerful technique. And there's a whole bunch of it here. We'll not do this week. I know that to be true. What's the powerful technique is remembering who we truly are by using the mirror feedback technique. This is a really hard one. But here's where it came from. Very late in the ministry, Master Teacher Jesus turned to all his disciples and said, well, who's everybody say I am? And they were telling him, Rabbi and all this. And Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he turned to Peter and said, you could never know that by man's intellect. You had to get that from allness. So this technique that Butterworth put in here is in alignment with this teaching. So we simply go to the mirror every morning and we look into our eyes, which, as you know, the eyes are what? The window to where? The soul. And you ask yourself, so who do you think you are? In your eyes, into your soul. Who do you think you are? And the answer is, I am the Christ, the child of the living God. For me, my reframe, I am the eachness of the allness. Try this tomorrow morning. And don't let your eyes look down. Look into your soul and ask yourself the question, who do you really think you are? And watch what happens inside. In your mind, in your heart, you're going to feel it. You're going to want to look down, you want to look sideways. In your soul, who do you really think you are? And listen to the answer that comes forth. And then find what you really want to be the truth for what and who you believe that you are. Eric says this, God can do no more for you than he can do through you, through your consciousness. I've talked about this many times, the billions of prayers for God to heal someone, and they aren't healed. Because God is not in the healing business. God is health. And as we align with that truth, health flows through us, or happiness, whatever it might be. It has to happen through our consciousness. And this is one of the ways to get connected, is really beginning to understand who are you really? Who are you? And listen to the answer. All of this is potential. We can only bring it forth into our world by consciously getting connected and letting the process happen. Let's go to silence, please. Let's take a couple deep breaths. If it feels comfortable with your spiritual eyes, inside with your eye, look up. Connect with the golden white light. The pure energy of the divine, the allness. And it's in the connection to the allness we become the eachness. Each of us have all of the allness within us. Can you feel that? When thoughts come like, I wonder how long this meeting is before we can go eat. Just go back to the allness. I am one with the allness. Words are just mental constructs. They can only lead us to signposts. The signpost to the eachness. An Eric Butterworth meditation for this chapter. I want you to be still with me for a moment. I would like you to just whisper for yourself right now. I exist. I exist. Right here and right now, the whole universe is projecting itself in focus through an infinite and wonderful idea, which I am. This is God's image and likeness. Whatever else I am, it is simply this I amness that is being suppressed, seeing in a mirror darkly. Let me remember and never forget that beyond the appearance, beyond the human, beyond the flesh, beyond the limitations of relationship and environment, there is an allness. There's a wholeness. There's an I amness. This is what you really are. When life asks of you, who do you think you are? There's really only one answer, and it comes easily. I am. I am whole. I am an individualized expression of the infinite. I am the Christ, the child of the living God. I am the eachness of the allness. May you go forth this day, conscious of this great depth, committing yourself to the practice of it, dedicated to the realization that you were created in God's image and likeness. The image of God is the reality of you at the center of you. It is the wholeness of you that is present even if you're experiencing in part. Asian cultures have an expression, namaskar. It strictly means the divinity within me salutes the divinity within you. It's a beautiful realization to hold and use to get centered in your awareness of truth about other persons. But it's so especially good in helping yourself. When you look in the mirror, just whisper to yourself, Namaskar. That's all. The first thing in the morning when you stand in front of the mirror, just quietly say Namaskar. I salute the divinity within you. I see you as God's perfect child, perfect in potential, yet not perfect. Lots of work to do. Perfect as a potential creature for expression. The eachness of the allness. Namaskar.